We've covered the Jackson Dart Luke Altmaier competition from the beginning, almost at the expense of the other game breakers. Who are those game breakers? We let you know next on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis. Thank you very much for tuning in. We're 2 days away, folks. 2 days away from kickoff. Should be a lot of fun. As we talked about in the beginning, who are the game breakers on this team? We're going to let you know who those guys are. We're going to take a day off from the quarterbacks and get ready for what's going and just kind of focus on these other game breakers that people probably might know. They may have somebody that they didn't quite know. We don't know. We will let you know. Anyway, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell for notifications for new videos, which are quite frequent, and of course upvote the video itself. And remember, subscribing to the YouTube channel will allow you to chat on the post-game coverage if you want to participate in the show. So you need to subscribe there if you want to chat. Anyway, who are the game breakers? And by a game breaker, I just simply mean somebody that has the ability to turn the game on its head, a special type athlete. And I've told you for 6 months that talent-wise, this team has rapidly improved. The talent infusion done by Lane Kiffin is pretty much second to none. But due to this quarterback competition between Jackson Dart and Luke Altmaier, some of the storylines kind of drifted back to the back burner. And that's perfectly fine. I mean, that's to be expected. The most important position in sports is the quarterback. And that includes any sport. The most important position in sports is the quarterback. And fans are going to gravitate that direction. But there are game breakers that are now on this team. And maybe a couple that were carryovers from the last team. But the first and foremost one is Zach Evans, the running back transfer out of TCU. He's a guy with Adrian Peterson level talent. I know you guys are probably sick of me saying that, but his talent profile is absolutely off the charts. And if you talk to NFL scouts around Oxford, they will let you know that Zach Evans is the most talented player on Ole Miss's roster. He's the guy that everybody is there to see, everybody's look for. And he's Snoop Connor and Jerry and Ely together. So you got Jerry and Ely on Snoop Connor's body, essentially. But he can also lower his shoulder and do some damage there. And he said he wants 20 to 25 touches a game. He said he's ready to play pissed off. And this is all stuff that I am looking forward to seeing, because if this thing gets going with Zach Evans and gets going, Lane Kiffin has shown in the past the tendency to hand the running back the ball. Over the last 3 games of the 2015 season, I believe it was, look at how many carries Derrick Henry got a game. Lane Kiffin will make his best player receive the most touches. He's always done that. And everybody talks about scheme or what's going on. That is something that they always focus on, is the best player gets the ball. After Derrick Henry, they got the ball to Amani Cooper. It's just the way they're programmed. It's the way that Norm Chow USC system works. Sarkisian does pretty much the same thing. But Zach Evans is probably game breaker number 1 and is probably in rarefied air at the running back position at Ole Miss. I don't know whether to compare him to Deuce or John Avery at this point, because it is still just talent. He still needs to perform. But if he does, it could be special along the way, really. Enjoy this ride, even if it's for 1 year. Enjoy it. The second is Ulysses Bentley IV, another running back. And this is kind of a theme with this team. I call him a Jerry and Ely plus type player. He is a super fast back and uses his speed very effectively. He's also somebody that actually looks for contact, and he has excellent lateral quickness. Because of that, he's able to get in and out of cuts really quickly. And it'll be interesting to see how much of a contrast he can provide to Zach Evans. Because one thing that, as we get closer to kickoff with Troy, I'm thinking is that this running back room is going to function in a real similar way to last year's running back room, which we could see Quinshon Judkins with 4, 5, 6 carries a game. We could see Ulysses Bentley with 10 a game. We could see Zach Evans with 20 a game. Now, the 4 or 5 carries that Zach Evans is probably going to get extra, he's probably going to take from Quinshon Judkins. Bentley's going to get his touches. But that running back room is just stacked with potential game breakers on this roster. And that is really good, because I'm going to tell you the next two that they directly affect. Now, as most people know, we run a predominantly RPO system. Like 85, 90% of the plays are from the Baylor RPO model from back in the day. We got about 10% of the plays that are Lane Kiffin shot plays, but I'm not going to focus on them right now. The outside wide receivers using double moves, getting open, the Braylon Sanders, like last year, Braylon Sanders, Jonathan Mingo this year, Malik Heath, those guys are going to get theirs. But they are not what I would constitute a game breaker. The game breakers are going to be on the inside, in between the hashes, to me, and on this team. And the first one we need to look at is Michael Trigg. And everybody's like, well, he's a co-starter. We'll just call him a co-starter. And I think basically that co is if first down is a running play, Casey Kelly is going to go out there. If first down is a passing play, Michael Trigg's going to go out there. That's what I think that co means. And with Zach Evans or Ulysses Bentley being so dangerous behind the line of scrimmage, it is going to force linebackers to step. It is going to open space behind them. And Michael Trigg is the perfect tight end to take advantage of that space, to take advantage of those type things. Because in an RPO system, they need to and they have to respect the run. There's nobody that's going to play Ole Miss this year that is not going to respect the run. They're all going into this game like they used to back in the 90s and 2000 with we've got to stop the run. We've got to make them throw the ball. And because of that, Michael Trigg was going to have space in the RPO game. They're going to use him effectively. I am expecting something similar to the way that FA used Harrison Bryant. So if you want to go back and look at that, you can, but he's in a position to be uniquely effective, even more so than Kenny Yeboah was. So, but Kenny Yeboah had a special wide receiver. Now, Jaylon Robinson is my fourth game breaker. And all of the stuff that I just said about Michael Trigg also holds true for Jaylon Robinson. But he actually scares the free safety. He scares the back four because at any point a slot fade or a slot go could happen. They could do RPO stuff, but he could also be called plays specifically for his skill set. Jaylon Robinson is also on the top of the depth chart, even though it's an or, on punt return and kickoff return. So there's a chance if he's healthy that this guy could do some special things at the wide receiver position for Ole Miss. These are the 4 game breakers right now that I'm looking at. I know that all the storylines in the offseason was about the quarterbacks. I get that completely. But these are the 4 stories that kind of got, I'm not going to say swept under the rug, but maybe overlooked a little bit. These are the 4 game breakers on offense that you need to look at. This is the reason probably Ole Miss is a 21.5 point favorite. This is the reason the over-under is at 57.5 points. They're expecting that. 40-17 hits under, by the way. I'm probably going to talk about that on Friday. But anyway, before we do anything else, I do want to let you know about BetOnline. It is your number one source for all of your sports, college, and pro football betting needs this season. Find all the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including this year's opening week games. BetOnline is also your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf, both PGA and Live Tour. I bet if you say pretty please, they'll give you an MLS line too. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including iTunes and Spotify. Please don't forget to rate and review the show. Make sure it's a 5-star review. You can say whatever you want to say, just make sure it's a 5-star review. And if you do that, it'll help others be able to find the podcast. Because while this might not be your cup of tea, it might be somebody else's. And this will allow them to find it. I think we're like third on the search as it is right now. So thank you for that. Now, what are we missing? You know, that's a unique question. You can see it on the rundown over on the side. What are we missing? And because we have talked about every possible subject. We've talked about the quarterback competition. We talked about game breakers just today. We talked about Troy, what type of offense they're going to run, what type of defense they have with Josh Boutwell. What are we missing? And it's important to realize that we have probably talked already about the key issue that will be a part of this game. And that's actually really cool to think about. I just hope it wasn't in April, you know. But we have depth on the defensive line. We have depth on the offensive line. We talked about, is Jaden Williams going to play left tackle? Or is it going to be a Jeremy James or Mason Brooks? All of these things were talked about. So what are we missing? You always, anytime you have a big test, anytime you have a quiz, anytime you have a big moment that you have to go to, you're always concerned about mistakes that were forgotten. If you go on vacation, you worry about forgetting your phone or whatever it is, something you worry about forgetting. Or anytime you leave the house, you're worried about forgetting the saline solution or your toothbrush. What are we forgetting in this Ole Miss game? And I'm trying to work through it. I think we talked about what's going to happen. It's one of the shows in the last 6 months we talked about what's going to happen Saturday. I don't know which one. And I think that bothers me. You know, I would love to sit here and come on the post-game show and talk about, hey, the quarterback came out and had a wonderful debut with Zach Evans with 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. The defense was stingy. All of that stuff that was just kind of chalk by the book. And there's a chance that happens. There's absolutely a chance that happens. But Troy is the team that, A, they're a good opener because they're good enough to get your attention in fall camp. You wouldn't want a situation where you open with Central Arkansas. You know, like Florida State opening with Duquesne. Now, granted, you can kind of get some kinks out in that one, but you're probably not working with as much urgency on August 7th getting ready for Duquesne than you would if LSU was popping up in that first game of the schedule. That's my point there. So I'm expecting somewhat chalk. I do wonder, like I said, I've talked 2 or 3 shows this week, and I'm not going to make my official prediction until Friday, whenever we do our pick show that's going to go out about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday. And you can listen to that on the way to the game. We're going to pick all the SEC games against the spread. Pay attention to that. But, you know, it's a game where 40-17 hits the under. It's a game that if Troy decides to slow things down and they're real physical, this is Joe Craddock, the new offensive coordinator at Troy, was at UAB last year. If anybody watched the way that UAB played, they know it's a little bit unorthodox, and they're kind of heavy on the run game. They're kind of the anti-tempo team, which is kind of funny because Joe Craddock was Chad Morris's right-hand man for several years, including Clemson, SMU, and Arkansas, the former MTSU quarterback. So I'm leaning right now to thinking Ole Miss is not going to cover the line. Ole Miss is going to be right there. But if Ole Miss's defense is good, as we all expect them to be, if their defense is good, then they only have to score 3 touchdowns and a field goal or 4 touchdowns to hit the number. And if that happens, they're going to hit it no problem. I worry more about the over-under than the actual line. But there's questions, you know. You see all that. On BetOnline, Ole Miss is a 21.5 point favorite. On, the over-under is at 57.5 points. 40-17 hits the under right now. So it's interesting. And, we're out of stuff to talk about for this game. Like I said, we've covered every possible angle. And it should be interesting. Anyway, do want to tell you this before I take a break and get to Cara. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel to be able to participate in the chat. Our chat is subscribers only, and that is to prevent Russian bots from coming in and taking over like they did during the Omaha Live thing. So do that for us. Also, during the game, it might be a little bit later than immediate because I have to do a TV hit and put it out and do a quick 45 to 60 second video after every Ole Miss home game so we can send it out to Tegna stations. And they can choose or not choose to broadcast them, but there's 2 in Memphis. So if you live in Memphis, there's a chance you could see it if they decide to run it. But we know that Memphis can be a little bit weird when it comes to Ole Miss. They're pretty much insular when it comes to their college football for whatever reason. It's okay. But also Tegna on the SEC, the Locked On SEC channel, that second listen there, they're going to do an SEC game-to-game show to where that 60-second piece will also be there as well. And they're going to do it like a Sports Center type thing where there's just an announcer bouncing from game to game and they're going to go through games. So it should be an actual really cool listen. I'll be on there for about 45 to 60 seconds. And it will be really cool. But after that, we will do the post-game show with Mike Espy and Bill Flowers. Got a confirmation today from Bill Flowers that everything's good. Still waiting to hear from Mike Espy, but that might have happened as well because I sent the confirmation email at the same time. So we will see exactly how that goes. Now, I recorded this before my interview with Cara McCutcheon. So if you do not see Cara McCutcheon after this, technology got us or something, life happened. And I'm still talking about what we're missing or something like that. But if not, Cara McCutcheon is going to be here right after this break. And it should be really cool. But anyway, remember, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And that'll help us on down the line. I think we hit a milestone this month to where over 50,000 views happened on the YouTube channel, which is, kind of rarefied air for a YouTube channel. And we are getting subscribers somewhere at about 11 or 12 per day and have for the last month. And it's really cool. So subscribe. We're not going to hit 2,000 before Troy, but we can hit 2,000 during the season. And I'm going to do the 10-minute pregame show that I'm going to release on our socials anyway. So y'all are going to get some sort of a pregame show anyway. You have the Troy interview that's going to be released tomorrow. And you have the SEC After Dark picks. And you have the Biscuits and SEC preview. So we are going to have so many perspectives on this channel for you guys. We say from the beginning, it's like we want to be about commentary and perspectives. We don't want to be about news. We don't want to be about any of that. We want to be about commentary and perspectives, because if enough people talk about it, eventually you can kind of figure out what the truth is. And I think we're doing that pretty well. Anyway, we're going to take a short break right after this. Cara McCutcheon, stick around. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Cara McCutcheon is here for her weekly spot, talking a little bit of Ole Miss football. Hey, KD Hill, Cara, was just announced as the Chucky Mullins Courage Award winner. That's always a pretty cool award, and that is one of those moments whenever Chucky got hurt and got injured. I can remember exactly where I was. That was probably the second time in my life that happened. The first time being the challenger, but those two things are really clear in my mind.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and like we discussed, like, you know, Lane kind of moved this to a fall thing, so I think he gives time a little bit from the spring. So very much an honor for him.
Yeah, he's a good player, and he said it was his dream ever since he committed to Ole Miss and found out about it. That became a goal to someday wear the number 38. So I think he's actually going to wear the jersey and not just the 38 patch, and it's going to be a pretty cool thing. I just wanted to bring that up because that was just recently announced before we started recording. Anyway, Cara, I want to bring this up to you, and let's say that the media can be lemmings from time to time. And because of that, and Auburn having the amount of disarray that they have, how long do you think it is before they say Lane Kiffin is a candidate there?
Oh, I think we'll hear it probably about October, mid-October. You know, it's setting up quite nicely to look like a nice little Tommy T throwback, especially with Lane's current comments about Oxford. You know, those similarities are stacking up. Do I think Lane would leave? No. But do I think it definitely puts together a great rumor? Absolutely.
Yes. Just so everybody knows, in the name of transparency, Lane Kiffin is a name. If I put him in the title, I'm guaranteed to get 200 more views for the same video than I would have gotten before. It's the same thing with Jackson Dart. Some people just have that interest rating. So the media is going, because of that, any job that comes open, they're going to attach Lane Kiffin in there, whether there's real interest or not, because it guarantees their article is going to do better. It's really weird.
Yeah, and like I said, it's got the makings of a, is this the next Tuberville? Gosh, could you not see Lane as a future senator? I could. So I think it really does have the makings of a good story, a good rumor. So I think we'll hear it. We might hear it for other schools, but I definitely think as we go through the season, we'll hear it more and more for Auburn.
And tonight, as this podcast airs on a Thursday, Tennessee is going to start playing. Missouri is going to start playing. It's going to start to feel real because there's games Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. It's going to be nonstop throughout the week. What are you looking forward to this weekend?
You know, obviously I'm looking forward to us in story, but I'm really also looking forward to seeing how LSU and, well, I know that's Sunday, but LSU and FSU. Interested in watching that Notre Dame and Ohio State matchup. And of course, Georgia, Oregon. That Dan Lanning versus former team, Bo Nix again against Georgia. So good matchups coming up.
Yeah, today at about 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central, we're going to release a video. But the 3 games to watch in college football, the 3 that we pick, is Arkansas, Cincinnati, because that's a ranked game that nobody's thinking about. Auburn, Georgia, and Ohio State, Notre Dame. Those are the 3 games to watch this week. And that should be a really cool segment that I think this thing has a chance to grow a little bit. But yeah, as I'm building all these graphics for all these new shows on Game Week, I just get so excited. Like, I got to build the live stream today, and I'm just like, I'm just like giddy, like I'm 6 years old and it's Christmas Eve, and I'm just trying to rush downstairs and see what's under the tree. But that's how I'm feeling right now.
You know, another good matchup that people aren't really talking about, but has potential legs, is that South Carolina Georgia State game. You know, Georgia State had some pretty good openings against, who was it, Auburn and
Tennessee.
Tennessee, yeah. I think South Carolina will win it, but that has some potential legs to be a pretty decent game, pretty decent matchup.
And if I'm not mistaken, the head coach at Georgia State was at one point the interim coach, maybe after Spurrier left at South Carolina. So he has some roots there at South Carolina. And the new mascot name, they had to change the name from Sir Big Spur at South Carolina to something else.
Yeah, it's now
the General. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I thought one of the choices, maybe they were joking on it, one of the choices was Cluck Norris. And I was like, if you name your mascot that, you're never losing again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they missed an opening there.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody wanted to go juvenile with the Cock Commander thing that they were all talking about. And they just completely whiffed on the Cluck Norris thing, and then they went with the General because we can't name our mascot that. And it's like people naming boats like Bodie McBoatface and stuff like that. Whenever you put it for a vote, expect the lowest common denominator to rule the day.
Yeah, I think another good matchup that I think people aren't talking about is that Memphis Mississippi State game. That could potentially, you know, I think Memphis could keep it close. They typically try to against Mississippi teams. This actually came up, bringing that up, is Memphis a rival? And I just don't see Memphis. And growing up as an Ole Miss fan, I've never considered Memphis a rival or a traditional rival.
Are you talking about that thing from Big Game Boomer that he did on Crane and Company?
And Jake Crane. It started a huge conversation with both Mississippi schools, which, you know, congrats to them bringing Egg Bowl Twitter together in one tweet. But I don't think I've ever in my life considered Memphis a rival. I'm not saying they're not a good team, just I've never considered them one of our traditional rivals.
Yeah, they're one of those teams that look at Ole Miss. They look at themselves as they want to be a rival of Ole Miss and of Mississippi State. But the other way, it isn't quite there. It's the same way that Ole Miss fans view USM. And USM viewed State and Ole Miss in a different way. Now, I like Big Game Boomer. He's fun. He's really good at grabbing attention. He's really good at starting conversations. And he just kind of whiffed a little bit here because I think Ole Miss played Memphis last in 2018, 2019.
2019, yeah.
Yeah, it's 2019. Enough time hasn't been passed where you can play the ducking them card because this was never a every year type of game. If you want to play the ducking them card against Ole Miss, it would be a Southern Mississippi argument because Southern Miss beat them in '84 and Ole Miss didn't play them again.
Yeah, I don't think we're really ducking them, but I think, you know, if you look at our record overall, it's like 47-12 and then 2 against Memphis. I don't think I really consider Memphis, like I said, a rival, and I don't think anybody at Ole Miss really goes into that game as scared as people think. I think we constantly think we should win that game. I don't think we think it should be as close as it is sometimes, but overall record, I don't really find us to be fearful of playing Memphis.
Yeah, there's certain fans that have the take that Memphis is going to be really up for Ole Miss. They're going to be really game to play. And my theory, my thought process on that is, well, don't worry about that. You want that. Everybody's up for Alabama every single game. It is their Super Bowl. That means you are where you want to be. If somebody is trying to punch up to get to you, that's a good thing. And you don't want to be in a situation where Memphis is not excited to play you. You don't want to be in a position where Southern Miss is not excited to play you. And there's just a weird thing. People are so risk adverse now, and there's a trash talking culture that has developed over the last 50 years or so. And I think a lot of this with Southern Miss and Memphis is they spend most of their time talking to people and honestly talking down about Memphis and Southern Miss. So if they ever lose that game, it's going to be reciprocated so hard, and people are going to earn it. They're going to deserve it for what's coming because of the way they've acted. That's my theory on that.
No, I agree. You bring a good point. I think we have that even when teams we view like Vandy or even sometimes Arkansas or State, or, we feel, as a mid-tier SEC team, I'm better than that team. So I think we do that just as much as in the SEC versus each other than we do non-conference schools.
Well, there's people at Ole Miss, and I've heard this conversation, that says we should stop playing Mississippi State, or we should leave the trophy at the center of the field. And that isn't a rivalry thing. That isn't a toxicity thing. That is a fact that you have talked for a full year, and if you lose that game, it's going to come back at you. That's all it is. It's just dreading that, because anybody that denies that Ole Miss and Mississippi State is not a rivalry and that game shouldn't be played, you don't have Ole Miss's best interest at heart, and you don't really know what's going on.
I think you have to have that. One of the things that I think social media has brought about is kind of taking away some of that banter, that I think it's there and it's fun, but you have to have that with your rival. As fans, that's one of the most fun you can have, going back and forth with your rival about those games. Now, of course, some people take it way farther than they probably should, but, I think some of the best times I've had is going back and forth with people from different teams in the SEC. I have a blast going back and forth, especially, when you have those games like the Arkansas game and it comes down to the wire like that and you're like, oh man, I'm about to hear it. And then you somehow win it and you're like, thank God I don't have to go back and eat crow now.
You know, it's a little bit similar to like gambling and have money on it. Mm-hmm. It's just that little bit of there's a consequence that you have personally for losing that game.
Yep.
And it's funny, and like that's a weird thing. You mentioned Arkansas. That rivalry when Texas and Oklahoma comes in, Ole Miss is probably going to lose that rivalry every year. That's going to be in the chopping block. Arkansas is going to play Texas, A&M, and probably Mizzou. That's going to be their three. But that is a sneaky, weird, fantastic SEC rivalry, and is probably the best rival that Arkansas has, and that goes back to the 80s.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think that's going to be sad for both Ole Miss fans and Arkansas fans, because I think in any sport, even when we played in baseball, I remember talking to Arkansas fans and both of us going, man, you just never know when these two teams match up. Like, it doesn't matter your records. It doesn't matter if you're ranked. It doesn't matter what you're projected to do. These two teams seem to play very differently against each other. And they can definitely ruin a season. If I think people out there who are saying, Ole Miss is going to come in and we're just going to trounce them in Fayetteville, I don't think they truly believe that, because, there's never been a time these two teams have gone against each other, especially recently, that just hasn't come down to the wire. It hasn't given you a small heart attack. I think both sides are, giving beta blockers a nice little push. I'm always really excited for that. So I do think with the possibility of Oklahoma and Texas coming in, it does kind of take away that matchup, and it'll be sad to lose that every year.
Yeah, but if they do what they say they're going to do, it'll be playing Arkansas every other year at that point, because every 2 years they'll end up popping up back on the schedule. So they'll play twice in 4 years. But that is a series where weirdness just seems to happen, from Brian Walker in baseball pretending to be hit, to 4th and 25, to the 2-point conversion last year, to Ole Miss having a 30-point first half lead and ended up losing the game.
Yeah.
All of that's happened in the last 10 years.
Yep. Yeah.
You'd be hard pressed. You'd be hard pressed to find that elsewhere.
Yeah, I think many of us can't even look at Hunter Henry the same. Like just a weird freak play that that Arkansas matchup is just a fun one. So
7 overtime, Eli. The hit, if you want to go back to 1990. back when they were in the Southwest Conference, Ole Miss and Arkansas played every year. And it was a vault thing because Johnny Vault played them until, I think, the 60s and the 50s and 40s. And then they kind of stopped in the 60s. And then Billy Brewer, who played them when he was playing for Ole Miss, picked them back up. And all of a sudden, they've played that game every year since 1981, I think.
We talk about Arkansas too, but I think the same could be said with LSU. I talked to a lot of people from LSU, and they love playing with us. The funny thing with LSU is our biggest rivalry, not so much the game, but while we have that, we want to beat LSU every year. Obviously, it's a special thing there that we want to come in and really just take out LSU. But LSU fans get really upset about the Grove. They cannot stand that the Grove beats them in tailgating. They get very upset if their tailgating isn't put above Oxford.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Gumbo in a parking lot does not turn me on.
Yeah, and so they say, oh, if you like cold chicken tenders. And I'm like, when do you not like cold chicken tenders? Like, who doesn't like that, right? So, that's the thing is the biggest rivalry is that they hate we are ranked above them as far as the tailgate experience. They can't stand it. And
when Ole Miss is good, and after last year going into Tiger Stadium this year, if Ole Miss is 6-7-0 when they play LSU this year, everybody will get an idea of what LSU really thinks about Ole Miss, because when Ole Miss is good, there is a next level of hatred that comes out of those guys.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. I remember being in Omaha, and I was standing with some friends that were from OU, and they hadn't really ever experienced Ole Miss or anything. And the national anthem was playing, and a guy yelled during the middle of it, "Go to hell, LSU." And I laughed, and they turned to me after and said, "What did he say?" And I explained, I was like, they were like, I didn't even realize how big of a rivalry that was. And I had to laugh, and I said, yeah, we're real classy with that one. We do like to it's bigger than people think. So
yeah, I've been going to LSU Ole Miss games since '83. '83 was my first Ole Miss LSU game, and that the go to hell LSU thing. It's been a pretty consistent thing all through the years.
So
it's pretty cool.
I have to say, this gets me pumped. I'm so excited. I'm ready for football to get here and get started. I wake up every day like, oh my gosh, we're not there yet. Like, can we get closer and closer? Like, I'm super excited to see who starts. Even I know like a lot of people are like, oh, our matchups for the first 2 weeks, but I still think there will be great games. I still think we're going to see a lot there. I think we'll see a lot of development. I think there's a lot of things to watch for in those games moving forward to see kind of predict more how we think our season's going to go. If we lose any of those first 4 games, I probably will be in the fetal position. I'll probably be a little sad. But I'm just really excited for this season. And I think for Ole Miss fans, like with Lane, with everything, I think we have a lot to look forward to. With Juice leading the walkthrough. So,
all right. Before I let you go today, I need a prediction out of you. Not a rooting thing. You don't root. Who do you think takes the first snap Saturday?
All right. I haven't said much, but
yeah. It's not a root thing at this point. It's just a prediction.
My prediction is Jackson Dart.
Okay. That's kind of going around at the moment anyway. But anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022. An 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team experts of Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey NFL Insiders are all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Cara, thank you so much. Enjoy the game this weekend, and we'll do it again next week.
Thanks, Steven. Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy.